Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with these nerds.
Indeed. Scott Garibay.
Nathan Nerdarchy.
And today we're going to be reviewing the latest Unearthed Arcana, the revised Subclasses. Jump down in the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, gain weekly tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. As always, too, we'll also put the link to the latest Unearthed Arcana revised subclasses down there for your convenience as well. So Unearthed Arcana dropped last week. It might be the last of the weeklies we're getting. I think they're going to actually go to work on actually making products soon. So they're like, I guess we got to stop writing these articles if we want to get any work done. So they revised a handful of them. I counted them, but now I forgot how many were there. There's a Barbarian, there's a Bard,
there's the Arcane
there's
option.
a Fighter,
There's a
Sorcerer,
Exactly.
and Monk. So there's like 5 of them.
Right, that's right.
And none of these are new. These are all ones that have been done. But I feel like they went back, they fine-tuned them, they made each of them unique, and they really did make them better.
Yeah.
Not necessarily mechanically, just thematically, and each one of these I read, I'm like, I want to play this, I want to play that.
It feels more solidified as something rather than like closer to a playtest.
And well, here's the other thing too. Like, it really does give me more confidence in the Unearthed Arcanas and what they're doing with them, and they've really seemed to they've found their feet with them. And I owe Mike Mearls and Jeremy Crawford an apology because I kind of rag on them sometimes about some of these. I'm like, these abilities feel so lazy.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I actually think that Unearthed Arcana is the future of the industry. That essentially source book material is going to be starting to be given away on free on the web by almost all the companies, and just saying, hey, our development work is value to you that we're giving to you for free, and it serves the beast, like the people who really want that extra stuff. And the fact that we're seeing revisions starting to be put out says even more that Unearthed Arcana is really starting to come up as an official source.
Well, what it tells me is they're getting closer to putting it in a product.
Interesting.
That's the Wizards of the Coast model. Your model, they can't pay the bills with. The lights go off.
Actually, as always.
There's a bit of a freemium kind of thing on the internet. I mean, people are watching the YouTube video.
Well, the reality is, so here's my take. So the D&D books they're the goose that laid the golden egg. They don't give two rats what they're making about the book. It's all about the film. You got to remember that. It's all about the film. Because that's where billions are made. You're talking about chump change.
Well, maybe we'll get into that on a different video.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So Ancestral Guardian is the first one we get from a Primal Path. In the revised, we've seen this one before with the other ones, and I think my biggest complaint was with that one. Several of the Barbarian abilities for the different paths all felt the same. Now, in hindsight, I understand why they do that. It's because they really want to thoroughly test a particular mechanic, so they give it to a bunch of different archetypes. And, but I like the fact that they went back in here and they changed things up to make things more interesting and a lot of fun. And this is the tankiest Barbarian there is. This guy is really designed to draw aggro from the enemies.
It's exceptionally powerful because I think you're really getting a lot of you're getting spells attached to your fighter, right? It made me think of two things. One, if you are playing this, I think you should be aware you are playing a Moana build. So that's what this is, because essentially they have the tattoos, and the tattoos essentially tell stories on them, and actually the men are coming out of the ancestral it was Ancestral Guardians are actually coming out of the tattoos, and in Moana his tattoos the Dwayne Rock character would completely animated. So I feel like this was the Moana build. The other thing is that I thought on this one was this build, from a mechanics perspective, it's powerful. It's definitely the most powerful from a DM's use perspective, because I was like, these Ancestral Guardians can be used to give clues to them. Can be, each time those Ancestral Guardians can come forward, their visual makeup can be clues that can kind of push the characters in different directions.
There's story uses for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
very, very powerful.
I agree. And, it does something really interesting that none of the other Barbarian paths can do. it confers your resistance onto them.
Right.
Like, so everyone, let's face it, everyone takes Totem of the Bear to get resistance to everything but psychic.
Yeah.
But now, when you can actually give, resistance to physical attacks to not only yourself when you rage, but your allies as well, that's pretty powerful.
And that's because these ghost spirits are coming out and fighting your opponents, which is just like, and I think that's one of the, it's definitely where it's actually bringing in arcane powers directly to a fighter class. It's really very interesting.
It also gives them disadvantage too, right? They have disadvantage to attack anyone other than you. In addition to,
it's like Super Sanctuary for everybody else when you hit that guy.
Yeah, you're really saying
question.
you need to be attacking me if you want anything to work, which is really cool. 6th level Spirit Shields kicks in, and that's when you actually send your ancestral spirits to actually protect your other players, companions, and you can do it every round, and
just uses your reaction.
I mean, you have to be raging, so it is limited to your rages, but you
you
get a bunch of them.
You're Barbarian. When are you not raging?
Yeah. And did you see that it actually gives Scry, like Consult the Spirits as a 10th level, is essentially saying your ghost spirits are in another place, and you can kind of see, and they'll give you information about that other place.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They call it scouting, but it's Scry, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and when you compare this,
clairvoyance, it's not as uber as
Scry,
but it's powerful.
It's still decent. You get to use it, each short rest. And here's the thing too, like when you compare this to, I believe the 10th level ability for Berserker is, I can give up all my attacks this round, which are going to do a friggin' ass ton of damage, and I can make one person frightened of me, and I can do that every round if I want.
Yeah,
Ooh.
It's pretty major.
Yeah, it's definitely way better.
Yeah. So and then 14th level they get Vengeful Ancestors, which that's where you actually do damage when they attack anyone other than you. So 1, there's the resistance. 2, you can use your reaction to lower the damage. 3, you can then take that damage you lowered it by and then give it back to them.
Yeah, and it actually is keying off the Spirit Shield
Yes.
and doing the same damage that one of your earlier attacks did. Now, I really like the way they wrote that, because that's really rules elegant. They're saying, hey, here's the damage this does. It does damage from, exactly the way this other... It's nested, so essentially you're nesting a rule within a rule, which it makes the shorter.
When you compare it to some of the other abilities that they did for like the other sorcerers and stuff, where it was like 2 plus a quarter your level, and literally people were arguing with me in the comments because of how much we said that it does. They're like, oh, you have to go by order of operation. When you have to fucking break out order of operation from math to figure out the ability. Come on, it's a little overcomplicated.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
for this, it is an elegant mechanic. I like that they went back and used something that they already had given it.
Yeah. And what you were saying earlier, that's actually a bigger issue within Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons has an overlap of, here's Dungeons and Dragons, your Venn diagram. Here's every developer in the world, and the crossover is like this. It's like 80% of every developer in the world plays Dungeons and Dragons, and they're like, of course you use order of operation.
Yeah.
You just write a shell script for that, man. It's simple.
They're trying to push us high school dropouts right out the door.
And actually,
but we won't go.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to dwell too much on this one. So absolutely.
But I like the way it's done. It's simple. It's elegant. I prefer that. I feel like when rules are overly complicated, for complication's sake, it's just like an exercise in mental masturbation. It's like, why? You can, at this point, you should have just made it a chart so I can reference it in an instant.
And I would say it's a step back. You're going back to 4th and 3rd. Where you had that level of complexity, and now I feel like the 5th edition bar is simple, elegant. That's that's the
a
bar.
Lot less granular.
That's the bar for a rule. Yeah.
So next we have Bard College of Swords. This one's a lot of fun. This is really cool. There's a couple places I got a little confused, but maybe you guys will.
So the feel of it is, I'm a bard, but the way I'm going to entertain you is by showing you my martial prowess, right? Which is really kind of limiting for a bard, but it is definitely a really unique flavor for a bard, I thought.
And it's a real thing. Like you have people that do the whip cracking.
Yep.
You have knife throwers, sword swallowers, all of that stuff. Even like I'd even like maybe group fire dancers in here a little bit as well. So there's definitely a lot of cool things going on. You get extra proficiencies right away with armor and scimitars. I just thought it was weird you get scimitars, but like they call it out scimitars specifically.
Yeah.
instead of going like all swords or all blades or
Well,
something.
there's an elegance to the scimitar. So if you're
Yeah.
going to be doing like blade work and stuff,
I mean,
like
and
that,
they
it's
already.
got the
I feel like they already probably get a bunch of them anyway.
spiral
You're
curve
right.
stuff.
Why scimitars? It's right in my notes.
Okay,
I'm like,
all right.
I really
Well,
felt it was
why
weird too.
scimitars? I'm going to say because they're an elegant weapon.
Yeah.
Long swords don't really add to, like, if you're doing like complex maneuvers and spins and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Bard
The scimitar's
might
kind of
actually
already a
get long
circle,
sword.
so
Yeah, so there's more you can do with it, especially from a performative. Yeah, that's
I
a great
believe
point.
so.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
I
on
think
it.
you're right. Yeah, I
I
think
mean, it
that
looks
is-
cool. Person really
Yeah.
using the high level of skill to spin a longsword around, but I think it just looks cool with a scimitar.
yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing they get at third level: a fighting style. They have two choices: dueling or two-weapon fighting. Both of them are super thematic. Both of them will work really well. And speaking of it, if you go two-weapon fighting, you're really going to want dual weapon wielder from the feats to be even better. So you can fight with two rapiers or long swords or whatever you want to do.
Scimitars.
Scimitars might actually be a weapon that you can fight dual wield anyway.
Just
the
more
way.
like a short sword.
Well, no, because of I think it's a finesse weapon.
I believe you're right.
So
they had
I'd have to look up the rules.
They had the blade flourishes, and there were the three different types. There was the defensive, the slashing, and the mobile. And I thought that was kind of neat, just the way they were, calling them out.
Well, there's another part of that too. First of all, using any blade flourish increases your movement by 10. So your walking speed goes up. They call it out specifically.
Yeah.
Walking speed, so you can't use it with teleporting, flying, swimming, climbing, burrowing, or anything else.
But that's significant. I mean, that's 20, 30 extra feet in a combat, because you're usually going to get 2-3 rounds.
Yeah.
And I feel that is significant. It's a lot of movement.
There's a couple things here. One is they have the three flourishes, like you said. The other is, but before it calls out, you may use one of these. So does that mean you can always just take the 10-foot of movement and choose not to use a flourish? Not to choose one. That part I was a little unsure about.
Yeah, I think if I was GMing, I would say you had to use it to, because you have to use
right.
Yeah, I definitely. You're using a flourish, and you're saying this is how I'm doing it, and I don't think there is a zero path. So
They don't get an extra attack, do they?
They do.
Oh, where is it?
It's later. It's 6th level. So the three blade flourishes, they get defensive, they get slashing, and they get mobile. Defensive is and both of them operate off the bardic inspiration die, which I like.
Yeah.
And also, this is like the really selfish bard because they use their inspiration for themselves.
For them. Yep.
Yeah. To make them better at fighting. So it can either increase their armor class, it can or they can just do damage to everybody around them, which is I like that, the whirling dervish. That makes sense. And then also there is the mobile flourish. Oh, this is the one where they push you around. They can push you around. Your inspiration die. So whatever your inspiration die is, you roll that, and it's you can push them that far away. So that's kind of cool.
I do feel that this build needs more of a specific setting for itself. Like in that, it's going to be harder. Like if you're a bard, you can go in and you can tell stories. But using this in a tavern, I think would be difficult. So I think that there are certain settings where this is going to be more useful, and you would need to work harder I feel you would need to work harder to give legitimate points where you're actually going to perform for people. You'd need to be more inventive as a player.
Well, I'm sure you can always do the cutting potatoes in half at the tavern when people throw stuff at you.
There you
simple
go.
stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Because people, they don't have TV or anything, so it's entertainment.
Yeah.
Something they've never seen before.
Or I guess you're going to be preparing a lot of food.
A little bit, in the flavor text, they do kind of talk about how you're probably an adventurer because you've been out from entertaining for whatever reason. These guys are kind of like the dark side of entertainment. Like they really made it a little grittier.
Yeah.
So
like they've got to ramble,
Yeah,
like they've got to go
absolutely.
someplace else when they're discovered.
So
kind of
as
thing.
to your question, cutting flourish, Nate, this is when they can attack twice instead of once whenever you use a blade flourish action in a turn. So does that mean without blade flourish they only get one attack? And that's why I asked, can they use the blade flourish without actually using a specific maneuver? And the other question is, if they attack twice, can they use the same maneuver twice with each attack? Because you can only take one of them at a time.
All right, so at third level, you can take as an action, you can make one melee weapon attack, and your walking speed increases by 10. Okay. So you can do that, and then you can also use one of the following blade. Okay, so you don't have to use a blade flourish, but I would say you've got to attack if you want the extra walking speed.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so that's that.
Yeah.
So now you can say at 6 you can attack twice instead of once whenever you use your Blade Flourish. So you can you can nevertheless still use only one Blade Flourish option when you take that action.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't use multiple of them.
Yeah, so you can get 2 attacks at 6, get your 10-foot of walking speed, and also use one Blade Flourish.
Yeah. Not 2.
Right.
Right.
So, but well, it says actually.
So what's your question?
All right.
Or
what it actually calls out only one blade flourish option, right? These 3 are options.
Okay.
So
No,
can you use the same?
I really feel
option
there's no
twice?
zero path. We keep coming back to that. I think the answer is no. Yeah.
And so the way it's worded, it makes me feel like they can get the extra. They can get the extra
I
movement.
see what you're talking about. Yeah, like you could do 2 defensive flourishes because you're.
Yeah.
I can see how that would work.
And I feel like if Blade Flourish is like you can attack and get the extra movement as part of your round, I feel like, and then the options are separate, I think they should have pulled it apart. Otherwise, to me, it's confusing. And then literally the number of times you can take a second attack is based upon how many inspiration dice you have.
Right, but each one of the flourishes is expending dice instead.
Mm-hmm.
So okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's really weird for a class to have the extra attack feature, sort of. Like, so they only have the extra attack feature if
they're Blade Flourishing.
If they're Blade Flourishing. And if they're Blade Flourishing,
they can use one of the
depending on
options.
your interpretation of this, they have to use their inspiration dice. So that means a very limited number of second attacks.
Yeah, now that I read it, I think you're right. And the reason why is it says can. And one of the things when I read the Sage Advice clarifications on this, just again and again and again, he said, these words mean what they're saying. And he just kept it. You're reading it correctly, which means you could really do a lot with this.
And that's one of the things about 5th edition. They're very much about the wordsmithing. Like literally, like if you read the Sage Advices for anything, so many times I go back, it says exactly what it means. This is what it says. And they're very specific about that. So, but sometimes that can get lost because the English language can be a little tricky, and the nuance of that, can go by it.
Well, and what they're relying on is like a player.
Smarter players than me.
Well, no, they've had players that are like, I'm going to break this. I've just broke your system, and they're like, don't worry, GM. Nobody can break your system because they're doing that to you, and they're using this power we just gave them. We'll just make 3 of them and throw them at them. Like it's that simple, And so I think they're saying, hey, you are a god as a GM. Don't worry about them using too much.
Oh, here's the thing too. If you thought it was confusing before, Master's Flourish, right?
Yeah.
Starting at 14th level, whenever you use a Blade Flourish option, you can roll a d6 and use it instead of expending Bardic Inspiration die. Yeah. So now it's going, no, you can do it all the time. It's just a smaller die.
Right. Yeah. Which is that's crazy.
I actually like this class. As a GM, I would just have to sit down with the player and define what everything means. And me, I'm like, I would probably just allow everything where I kind of questioned it.
Yeah.
Well, I think defensive flourish, you wouldn't be able to do it twice.
No, it wouldn't do anything because you've already increased your armor class. Yeah. So it wouldn't even really make all that sense. But where it does make a lot of sense is the mobile flourish when you're pushing someone around.
Yeah.
Especially if you have the movement to follow them. Yeah. And then you could really
keep that up.
Well, doing double slashing flourish would be good too.
Yeah.
Yes, and doing more damage to people around you as you move around. So and that really would give the Whirling Dervish feature or feel to it. So I don't know. You guys can argue about it in the comments below. Then that brings us to Fighter, Arcane Archer. I think they did a great job with this one.
Agreed. This was my favorite in the entire grouping. Just the idea to take a spell and move it to your target with an arrow. I think it's one of the, it's always been one of the coolest characters in the game. And I'm really glad they doubled down and refined it and are giving it an even better build. So there's a reason it's so popular.
And there's a couple things here that they did that I'm really digging on. One is, they basically, you're an Arcane Archer, your arrows are magic. +1 to hit, +1 to damage. Yeah. And that's a really big deal in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons with bounded accuracy. Especially when you go, you're a fighter type. Well, let's see what fighting style you're going to take. Is there anything other than archery for a ranged character? Yeah. So So like those characters have a +3 to hit, a +1 to damage, and that's without their dex modifiers. So that's kind of a big deal, especially if you're going to take something like Sharpshooter later on, where you're taking a -5 all the time.
I was just
And then
considering
also-
that's like the only disadvantage is the cover that people could have.
And your point was, it's the same thing. You can make each of those arrows magic with the +1, but you don't have to. You can just, you can fire with a non-magical arrow if you need to. So, which is nice.
Why would you want to, though?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
All the magic arrows for everyone.
Well, detect magic. Essentially would
Yeah.
detect that you were a magical archer.
Yeah, I
and
guess so.
Like if you were in a tournament.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Use,
yeah,
use a
yeah.
magic.
So yeah, you're
Right
cheating.
there.
Yep.
Archery tournament. That's classic.
Yeah.
So then we have Arcane Shot, and this is basically the thing saying, hey, you're gonna get these cool things we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So the only downside is you only get 2 of them per short rest. So they're super cool, but they're also super limited. The only thing I would like to see them get is maybe some more. Because you could literally blow through these, in the first
Like,
round.
guys, we have to
quickly.
run away. I have to take a nap.
Yeah. Third level, they also get Arcane Archer's Lore, which means they just get a skill in Arcana or Nature, which is cool. I like it when the fighter gets a little bit more. It adds a little more depth to them.
One of the things I was thinking is I really like that. Actually, 5th edition is definitely more progressive in that. I think in older editions, they were like, oh, these are clearly elven skills. So, they're really painting the Arcane Archer as a skill set that came from the elven people. But in 5th edition, they're saying that elves are more willing to share it with every other race. And they're, by willing to be more inclusive on, humans being able to get this from an elven culture, they're like, well, let's not really deal with the fact that most elves wouldn't share with that. And even the elves are more open to sharing their abilities, and I think that's interesting because you're going to see. I think in older editions, this would have been more limited to different races like half elves and elves.
Oh, yeah. Like it would have been like an elven
Exactly.
prestige class or something.
But you could, within the game right here, you're looking at a gnome can have learned this from the elven people. Because
Yes.
it's saying that the source is elven. It's kind of interesting, yeah.
7th level, we get Curving the Shot, and this is totally spend your bonus action, and you can Yondu that.
Yeah.
So, you can pick another target. So, also, I like options where you're using your other actions, and sometimes the fighter could use other places to put those, and that gives him that option. Oh, I missed. Let me hit your buddy with it instead.
Then at 15th, you get Ever Ready Shot, and your magical archery is ever available to you whenever you need it most. If you roll initiative and have no use of Arcane Shot remaining, you regain 1 use of it. Which is,
So that's cool. So that means you essentially every short rest you now have Arcane Shot twice plus beginning of every fight at the bare minimum.
So
and that's seen in a lot of other classes, like the monk and the sorcerer.
Yeah, a lot of times though, that's like the 18th
Yeah,
level
that's
ability. It's a higher level.
They got
ability.
it early.
Yeah. So that's kind of.
I guess that's how they decided to say, 2 isn't really enough when you get higher.
Now the Arcane Shots are crazy. So Arcane Shot options are the next, and you have Banishing Arrow, and then Brute Bane Arrow, Bursting Arrow, Grasping Arrow, and Mind Scrambling Arrow, and Piercing Arrow. Seeking Arrow. There are just so many.
And
Shadow Arrow. Yeah, and that's it. That's the whole.
And then they all have the ability at 18th level. They get a little bit better. So a lot of them will do extra damage, or have an extra effect, or some of them just go, oh, you don't actually have to roll to make an attack. They make a saving throw, or some one of them has either 1 or 2 of them actually have line effects. Yeah. So basically, your arrow is a lightning bolt. It doesn't do a ton of damage, but it's still you can hit as many targets as you can line up.
Yeah, and you're a fighter, so you also get regular attacks on top of that.
Yes.
Arrow.
So, I'm pretty happy with the Arcane Archer. If I have a complaint, it's only that you don't get that many Arcane Shots, so you're gonna have to pick and choose them wisely.
But you can, with your shots, you can banish someone. Brute Bane is just extra damage, which, by the way, my take on it, extra damage has become the new +2, right? We got rid of +2, which is really awesome because it was really lame when you would buy a source book and half the stuff where you get a +2 in this weird circumstance. And now I think extra damage is becoming the new +2. I'm not sure what they're going to do about that.
For these, since there's a bunch of them, let's at least just pick out a favorite. Mine is Grasping Arrow. This one's a lot of fun because if you hit them with it, they get extra poison damage. Their speed is reduced by 10. If they move, the first time they move on each of their rounds, they take another 2d6 slashing damage, and it lasts a minute. So that they have to make saving throws to try and get out of it. I think, and at the higher level, it does even more damage.
Oh, without a doubt, Shadow Arrow. It makes people blind. Essentially, it gives them blindness, which is crazy. The other weird thing is it gives psychic damage.
Yes.
Now, if do a little extra.
Yeah. Now, is that new? Like, have we only psychic damage is not within the PHP? Am I
Yeah,
right
it's
about
in there.
that?
It's in there, but not a lot of things.
It's very
Use it.
rare.
Right. Okay.
It
yeah.
makes it
So
very
Unearthed
powerful.
Arcana was
I
unpacking
think there's
that
like
more.
a few bard
Yeah.
spells that got psychic
Yeah.
damage.
So they knew they were going to move into psychic material.
Well, yeah, and they knew they were going to do psionics at some point or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of scions, I like Mind Scrambling Arrow.
Yeah.
Does some psychic damage, and it also messes with them if they have to succeed at a wisdom saving throw, or they can't attack the chosen ally or include that ally in a harmful effect.
Yeah.
So if you hit a guy like a sorcerer or a wizard or something like that, they can't fireball your group if you pick somebody.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool.
The other thing I do think this one is, it has a little bit of that too cool problem where, the player's handbook has just so much more material for casting material. Literally tens and tens of pages more material than any other race. And this one, I feel like you just scratch the surface with these arcane options. You could do so much more with them. This character, I feel like they're limiting it only because they can't give that much time to the other options. But this thing is just amazing. It was definitely my favorite build in the whole.
It's kind of like another way to do Battle Master.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm enjoying. I think
the
it's
ranged
cool.
battle master with magic powers.
That brings us to Monk Way of the Kensei. Kensei. You guys are gonna beat me up in the comments anyway.
I would
know.
say Kensei. So Path of the Kensei, you get to choose 2 weapon types to be your Kensei weapon, and then it jumps off from there. But they can't be special weapons, correct? Was there other limitations on there?
Yeah, they can't have special features and they can't have the heavy property.
Yeah. Now, actually, I thought this was kind of interesting in that this really steps on the fighter's toes a lot, and they're trying to create a Kung Fu style weapon master, but those weapon masters do generally use reach weapons.
Yeah,
They
they
have
use
those
weird
internet-connected
weapons.
swords,
and
those chains. They use crazy spears.
those
so,
weapons would
yeah.
almost be defined by the fact that they have special properties.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you get two primary abilities when you first take the path. In addition to getting the choice of those weapons you normally don't have access to. So one is if you make an unarmed strike as part of an attack action on your turn and are holding a Kensei weapon, you can use it to defend yourself if it is a melee weapon. And that gives you a +2 bonus to armor class. So these guys are actually essentially the best defended of all the monk builds now. They can, if you're using a melee weapon, there's pretty much no reason to never not have a +2 to your armor class.
Yeah.
So it's going to be wisdom plus your dex plus your +2 for the most part. And you're going to be, and I kick him so I can get a +2 to my armor class.
This one was pretty limited, it was compared to some of the other ones, and I think it was from what I was talking about. I feel like, it's so hard to keep the fighter a cool class because they're so basic. But these guys are really in their neighborhood here. Did we talk about? Go ahead.
I don't feel that much because you have things like the Battle Master and Eldritch Knight. They've definitely done some cool things that make the fighter still relevant, and the fighter still gets 4 attacks around.
Yeah, that's valid.
And that might have been one of the reasons why they blocked the heavy and the special.
Right, because they had to. I agree. It would have been way over,
So
way OP.
the other 3rd level abilities is as a bonus action. When you make ranged weapon attacks, you can increase your accuracy as far as you doing damage. So your attacks are more precise. You get an extra D4 of damage. It's not a huge thing, but it's your bonus action. Boom, do another die 4.
Then one with the blade at 6th level, you get magic Kensei weapons and precise strike. Go ahead.
So I don't actually know if the magic Kensei weapons is something they needed to include.
It's just saying your weapons are magical.
Yeah. No, the only reason I say that is because I thought monks already did that, unless it was only their unarmed strikes. But
No, I think it's their own hands.
Yeah.
First, their own hands become weapons, and then I think their own hands are magical weapons.
Yeah, I thought it
this is
extended
saying
to their
it's
monk
extending to your that's a great point.
So, but that being said, either way, it doesn't matter. It clarifies, so there's no question. Kensei weapons are magic at 6th level for purposes of determining. It's also a level later too, because at 5th level I thought they got the magic strike, but I could be wrong. So precise strike. When you hit a target with a Kensei weapon,
Extra damage. Yeah.
you can spend the Kai point to cause the weapon to deal extra damage. So it's not bad. It's not going to be a ton. Eventually, it'll go up to like a die 12 for a Kai point.
It increases as you gain levels. So that's always nice.
Sharpen the Blade. Now this one is nice. +3 to hit, +3 to damage for a minute. For
That's
a
not
Kai
bad.
point.
Yeah, which is a whole combo.
Or no, for 3 Kai points.
Yeah.
So that's decent. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then Unerring Accuracy at 17th level is really just, did I missed? No, I reroll that. And they get to do that once every turn.
I really like the fact that they're saying, like, you get this for 1 minute, which means virtually every single combat you're in, you get it for the full combat.
Yeah.
But they're not saying, hey, you get it for this full combat. They're saying, let's use this real world measurement, which has become a game meaning of, I get this for the full combat.
You know what it is? I have a whole thing with that, right? This is how they reintroduced a lot of 4th edition rules in the 5th edition to trick the people that were angry about 4th edition.
It's
like,
the new encounter.
Yeah.
It's the new encounter power.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Like, because those people that get so angry about 4th edition and the terminology and stuff, they're like, we'll show those dumb fucks. Watch this. They'll never even know.
Yeah.
And it's true. Just because they put a time on it, and instead of saying, 3 squares, they say 15 feet, and everyone's okay.
Yeah.
But when they were saying 3 squares, everyone was losing their shit.
But it is better. It gives them a lot more options, and it feels more natural. It reads far more natural. And like when you bring in a new player and they read 1 minute, they know what that means. That whereas you don't have to rely on them understanding encounter,
the rules,
which means it's hugely important because it means the game is open to players that we have not traditionally had.
Well, I would say the thing with encounter as well is am I an encounter or am I not in an encounter?
Yeah.
And it like kind
Exactly.
of it's like cue the battle music is what that's what I always felt when someone
You're
said
exactly
encounter.
right. Yep.
Well, a minute is if you're fighting for a minute, even if for half that you're running away from the battle, you're going to be tired.
Yeah.
So I mean, eventually
point.
everything should just turn off because you're exhausted and you need to just run or just duke it out with whatever you got left.
Everything you guys said makes sense, but I think the designers are just flipping the bird that they hate it. Personally, they're like, we made a great game, and you guys just refuse to acknowledge it.
Yeah, looking from a spite angle, sure, but I think it just makes sense.
It's the dwarf in me in my book of grudges.
So unerring accuracy in 17th, you miss, re-roll it.
Yeah,
Boom.
that's it.
That's huge. Yeah. All right, so Sorcerer,
Favored
soul.
Tasty soul.
So I feel like this was, hey, you want to play Harry Potter? Like it was it's literally the chosen one. Am I right?
It is. It's basically another divine. It's a source origin that has a divinity attached to it. So you're a cleric without being a cleric. So I have like one beef with this one before we actually get into the abilities.
They didn't give you ritualist?
No,
Oh.
I don't like the fact that it's so heavily reliant on healing. Like, you're like a cleric, so the only way to be touched by divine is you heal things.
Yeah.
But they very much made it a core part of the class.
Yeah.
And I could have
good
done with
point.
that. I like the idea in my Dungeons and Dragons. There's other versions of being a cleric or a priest, and they're not always the kind that just heal people.
They only get one heal power.
They get two, but that's besides the point. So look at 3rd level.
I think to complain about the amount of healing powers they get is a point. They get empowered healing, right?
Here, let's start right from the
All
beginning.
right, let's start.
They get access to divine every time they learn a spell known. They can take a cleric spell. Love that. Perfect. They can take anytime they get a cantrip or spell. They have access to all the cleric spell lists.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
they can know that's
Absolutely.
cool.
Yep.
Also, you learn Cure Wounds spell, which doesn't count against your number of sorcerer spells known at 1st level.
So
like
you gained a spell from the divine spellcasting list.
Yeah.
Which one would you prefer that they just get to choose?
Well, actually, like if it was like, hey, pick one off of one of the domains, I'd be cool with that. Like that would be
More
like
range. Yeah.
Yeah, it would
So
say.
one of the things that so
that's the thing is they give you cure wounds rather than say pick one.
But one of the things I thought was a Randall Thor is in there. Like, so Randall Thor is from the
Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time, exactly. Yeah. And, and like, this is just every John Campbell character. They're like, Sorcerer John Campbell, which I thought was really, I like that because it really, like, you can have a player who's like, I just read, the Wheel of Time. I want to play that character. You're like, here you go. Which I thought was pretty cool.
And the other thing, to speak with what you're saying, is like half their abilities literally touch on healing.
Yeah.
Like so that's a huge chunk like that you're dedicated to. If you didn't want to be that kind of divine origin, like what if what if it was a dark deity? Like why not cause wounds instead? Like that would be thematic. Now, granted, DMs can do whatever they want in their game, and this is still playtest, so hopefully, maybe the final tweak will be like, oh well, like here's a set of domains, and if you choose to be a favorite soul of that type of deity, this is your known spell.
Well, but so I'm going to unpack it for you and tell you. So I was going to spare you, but I'm going to jump in. Do you really want your guys like I got my super cool evil dude, and he's favored by the gods? Like, how many people can you bring in from Hot Topic? I mean, come on, like,
I tell you, I just use that as an example because. But what about a war god, or a god of storm, or whatever?
But that's just it. Is there like so? You're talking Percy Jackson. You're talking Randolph Thor, right? You like because evil has so many paths and their paths are so quick. If you give them what the good size has, it's just not balanced. And I think that what I'm saying is that's why I think they limited this more to a hero build. But to your point, the game
you
overall,
say hero build, I say heal bot.
They only get cure wounds, and they get the ability to re-roll the dice for it. Which I have to say, as a cleric, I've wished for every once in a while, and I don't like healing you guys.
Yeah.
I got stuff like banishing elementals from the plane of existence to do.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to that, right, we got favored by the gods. First level. Starting at first level, Divine Power guards your destiny. You fail a saving throw or miss with an attack roll. Roll 2 to die 4 and add it to your total possible, changing the outcome. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish.
That's ridiculous. You can't give that to an evil character. Like they just everybody wants to play an evil character now. Like that's why. Like this game, you could just hand the entire game to the goths if you allow that.
It's 2 die 4. It's one time.
This is bonkers. This is like you have missed an attack roll or a save, and you have a 2d plus 4. That's ridiculous. And it's at first level.
I like that it's not an advantage.
That is so broken.
I like that it's not an advantage because in case you had advantage and you still failed, you got
but
the
reality, I love broken builds, and actually I love that they're really saying, hey, put this out there, take it, run with it. And I think this is going to get people super excited. I want a problem on the DM side. I'll deal with that.
See,
you know what I mean?
I go one roll, so that's literally they can use it once in a combat. Maybe there might be 2 or 3 combats before they actually get to recharge that ability. Yeah. So hardly game breaking.
I definitely don't think it's broken.
That's valid. Okay.
Empower healing is super. It's super strong. 1 sorcery point and reroll any number of those dice once. Now, so here's the weird thing about that. You already have Empower as a meta magic feat, and that is spend, I don't know if it's 1 point or 2 points, but you spend whatever. Anytime you do damage, you can re-roll 1s and 2s. Not anyone you choose.
Not all of them that you want to. Yeah.
Yeah, 1s and 2s, and it's limited by your charisma modifier, I believe.
I'm sorry. My brain's still spinning what you're saying. What you're saying is this should be. Hey, buddy, I know you think you were a pig farmer, but you were chosen by the dark gods to bring pain to the entire world.
You're focusing on one aspect. Why not a god of the forge? So, that's...
Yeah, no, I see where you're going. And then they have the ability to do all that extra stuff. I think this specifically was... we've seen all these books. We want to allow the players to play these books. And the fact that they are going out and looking at all types of fiction and bringing it into the game is really option. This is a very strong Unearthed Arcana overall, I thought. There's a lot here.
And, like I said, all these abilities are really good.
Yeah.
And so, like, the Empowered Healing, I think, it totally outstrips the other Sorcerers and Powers by so much.
Yeah.
And they just get it. It's
like... But it's specifically for
one
spell,
thing.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of Unearthed Arcana is the game master has so much control. You can do these really over the top things because the game master can say that's Unearthed Arcana. I'm not allowing it.
That's another reason why they do that.
Yeah.
Angelic Form, 14th level. This one at first, the first part of the ability, hung me up for a little bit because like the second part's actually really good. But I had to digest the first part. But I'm like, but what does it do, right? Because it doesn't do anything. It changes your appearance, so you become more beautiful, youthful, kind, or imposing, and an otherworldly version. So it makes you look a little weird in one of those aspects. And I kept reading it over and over again, trying to figure out what it does, but it doesn't do anything.
Oh, it does everything. It's the scene, man. I've just seen this in so many books.
Yeah.
It's like where you go up
the
and
hero power up.
Well, you stand on a hill, and then your buddy's, the chick you're interested in comes from behind you and says, why are you glowing? You know, it's that. You're like, you know,
Well, yeah. It's a ribbon
Yeah.
ability.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, is a bonus action. You can manifest a pair of spectral wings from your back. The wings last until you're incapacitated or you dismiss them as a bonus action while the wings are present. You have a flying speed of 30 feet. I was like, oh, that's why, because they get to fly.
And you got a great point. That is super limited, but you could absolutely, you know, that's the game master can say, okay, I'm going to replace your wings with now you have, you know, gauntlets that appear on you and maybe they help you climb or whatever. But you're right. I read that too, and I was like, that's really limited. Wings? You're
Oh no, I
angelic,
felt
you
the
know?
other
Yeah.
way. I was like the
Oh, because it
ribbon
just
ability.
says you're beautiful, youthful,
Yeah.
kind, or imposing.
Yeah. Then I was like, oh wait a minute,
Not
that's
like +2 to charisma. Or...
Yeah. Then I was
And
like, oh, that's why, because we're getting wings.
It also feels like you're like, oh, you didn't play an ASMR, but you want to be one.
Yeah. Well, you could actually be an Azamar and be favorite soul. So, if you wanted to really double down.
It could give you some extra flying time.
Like, I have extra feathers now.
And
Like,
now I want to do it just to be the dark Azamar one, just to mess with Scott.
and I want extra wings that come out of my hips now.
Well,
I
why
wanna
not?
lose those
How many
extra
times
wings.
have you seen those 4 wings?
Yeah, I want
you know?
some quad wings going
Yeah.
on there.
Cherubim, yeah. So Unearthly Recovery, 18th level, you gain the ability to overcome grievous injuries, and like essentially, yeah, it gives you half your hit points back, right? Crazy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
As long as you're half
huge.
down, you get half back.
Yeah.
All right, so I forgot how much healing this guy has. He
Oh
does
my
have
gosh.
a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I saw it too. Yeah,
I was like,
saw,
guys,
yeah.
both like,
Yeah,
Nate doesn't know what he's
yeah,
talking about.
Well,
it's a
so
lot
no,
of
I
healing.
don't see this. I don't mind because this is just them. Like you know,
yeah,
they're
this is
Brazilian. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, look, I actually like. All
I
I'm
like the
saying,
idea of having options for it.
I just like to
earlier.
acknowledge there's other deities that don't really care so much about healing.
But you know what, Dave? As a sorcerer, a spell that you know you can get rid of and get another one.
Yeah.
So it gives you cure wounds.
Oh,
Spell,
that's
you can just
true.
take whatever you want.
I didn't think
Be
about
like,
that.
sorry gods, I know what I want to do.
Right? The Wizards of the Coast is going to watch this video and be like, "Oh, we got to fix this real quick."
It's great Unearthed. I really like that.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. You could
Yeah.
absolutely do that. I mean, it would make your 6th level ability useless, but
Oh, well, yeah.
So real quick, favorite?
oh my god, it would be so hard to pick one.
Arcane Archer for me. Do you have a favorite?
I like the style of the Kensai, even if...
Oh, I hated it. That was the worst.
Even if I can't use a giant halberd anymore.
I am actually torn between College of Blade, the Ancestral Barbarian,
Yeah, Ancestral
those are-
Guardian.
and the actual favorite soul for all my bets.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a great Unearthed Arcana. So,
So,
yeah.
so this one is chock full win. Thank you, Mike Mearls and Jeremy Crawford. You guys nailed this one, blew it out, blasted it out of the park, and I really enjoy what you guys are doing with the Unearthed Arcana, how you're taking all that feedback and revising the stuff, making it better. I can't wait to see this stuff come out when it actually becomes a product. Hey guys, jump down to the comments below where you can let us know what you thought of this Unearthed Arcana. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
And actually, head on over to nerdarchy.com.
And while you're there, you can check out the store.
So until next time,
Stay
stay
nerdy.
nerdy.